What's going on? Killazilla is back with another Crossout video. Quick little update. Now, this is part 2 of an update that I kind of avoided making because nothing seemed to be set in stone. There weren't any real names or even details. You know, it was kind of like, hey, look at this, but they gave you no information. This time we got some information, so let's check it out. So now that we have 2 parts, I think this is the perfect time to go over this because anything that was mentioned in part 1 and followed through into part 2, we're going to probably get, right? Even stuff in part 1. You have to think that there might be a minor nerf or a buff or a slight perk change to these items. But other than that, they're mentioning it because it was an idea they put into development. They're not just going to not do it. The changes might be a little bit different, but what they're actually mentioning is probably 99%, right? So this was on the 28th of February, 2025. The founders are in play again. New features of the major March update, part 1, right? Now we're going to get to part 2, but let's quickly go over this. Hello, survivors. The Wasteland Drift season is coming to an end, as well as the war between the Scavengers and Syndicate for the Oracle Activation module. It's no secret that the next season is about the long-awaited founders. These season builders always have tons of tough, heavy machinery to pummel their enemies into the ground. What have the founders been doing for all these past years? They worked tirelessly on new brutal tools. In the first part of our blog, we'll see the tip of the iron iceberg. They prepared an epic support module of a new type and a legendary ballistica. Let's go. So, here we go. Hello. Everything we're going to tell you is not going to happen, right? It's going to happen. It just might be changed is basically what that means. So the Eric support module for improving accuracy. I mean, this is pretty obvious. It's going to do something about the spread. Yeah, much like either the Torero cab or anything that's going to give you a tighter grouping, because that's what accuracy means, right? You need to take the grouping and make it as small as possible so you can hit more bullets, and that would be considered better accuracy, right? Now, the game's not going to aim for you. That doesn't mean it's going to give you aim assist, It's just improving the grouping. Same thing with spread and spread stability, right? I don't know if this is verified yet, but my thought was always spread is just while you're shooting, the grouping's tighter, and spread stability means at speed, your grouping is tighter, because I think there's a difference between moving and not moving when it comes to that fuse, whether it's spread and spread stability. So spread is very unpleasant thing. The founders seem to think so too. They created a new type of module never before seen in the world of Crossout, which makes their life easier by improving accuracy of fire. In exchange for 1 energy unit, the module will provide several bonuses aimed at improving accuracy. For example, it will reduce the minimum and maximum spread, and its perk will increase the projectile speed while driving slowly. A very useful gadget. So, like I said, I use the oppressor a lot, and that does the same thing, because like it says, at speed, your accuracy gets a little bit crazier, and that's obvious, right? So this also helps you there as well. Now, a quick reminder would be, unless it's a spin-up barrel, anything that immediately shoots when you click it, you can always tap fire. Tap fire is way more accurate than any other way you can shoot a weapon. I'm talking 3 or 4 bullets at most, and you can tap it fast because it's resetting every time you're releasing, The first couple of bullets are always the most accurate. Legendary ballistica. The founders love the smell of heavy metal in the morning, especially if it's a piece of heavy metal flying on a ballistic trajectory towards an enemy car. Such a projectile can deal massive damage, especially if the enemy has lots of parts slapped on their vehicle. And of course, you need a big ballistica to send the slugger flying. Obviously, right? So we're going to have some more impulse going on here. So, you know what it was too? I've seen a lot of people recently talking about how they miss impulsiveness. As much as people are I hate this mode, I think they learned to love it. Because it was fun, man. And it was visually pleasing to see your enemy go flying across the map. Now, I own 4 spikes, 4 toadfishes, fused for extra impulse. I made max impulse builds, and you can still barely throw light builds. Heavy builds aren't going nowhere, right? So if this has the ability, like it says, where does it say it? Especially if it's a piece of heavy metal. Well, here we go. Especially if the enemy has lots of parts slapped on their vehicle. So this is maybe aimed more towards those heavier builds, being strong enough to move those heavier builds, right? The new legendary weapon fires a metal beam that hits hard. The projectile deals increased damage to structural parts. We're sorry to everyone who loves creating armor out of these, out of the structural parts. A hit from the Ballistica has high impulse, which is helpful against melee enemies, which is cool. Like the Ripper disc, the beam stays stuck in the ground. Pretty cool. So you can maybe, like, if your enemy's running away, you could shoot it and stop them, make like a gate. New structural parts, so you get a couple new little bumpers and some armor. That's pretty cool. Now let's move on to part 2. That's what we're waiting for. So now we have part 2, the 7th of March, 2025. The founders are in play again, new features of the major March update, part 2. Hello survivors, let's continue talking about the new features of the upcoming Founder season. In this entry, we'll share some information about legendary parts, a heavy cabin, and a cannon with 2 modes of firing. We also recently mentioned 2 new frames in our social media posts. Are you intrigued? Let's take a look. This says again, we might change some things. The legendary heavy cabin. Can founders return without bringing a cabin from the heavy construction machine? No way. The new heavy cabin encourages heroically taking damage during battles, since it is the slowest and the most massive one in the game. But while you're tanking, you're also powering up. The parameters of the cabin increase when you are taking damage, and not just in big spikes of boosting just one. All characteristics of the cabin gradually improve over time. The bonuses accumulate until the end of the battle. So much like the humpback, I guess, you're getting stronger as you're getting damaged, right? Which, it's leaning again more towards bricks, but bricks are not meta. They're not hard to kill. The bigger, bulkier, and this seems to be slow, it's extremely easy to kill. I think going fast is way more valuable than being a brick. So what? You can take extra damage. Well, guess what? You can also not dodge any damage. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll make a video on like easier ways to take out bricks, but there's so many counter metas to that. It's ridiculous. But this seems a little bit different because it is a bigger, slower cab, as they said. It's going to be bigger, harder to cover maybe. So you can cab damage people a lot more easier if you kind of chew through their armor, more exposed cab. Also, you have to think too, if it's slower, it's going to be boosting up the power, the speed, the acceleration. So you're telling me it's slow, but if I shoot it a bunch, it's only going to get faster and more powerful. That's exactly what I was talking about, right? So this is the type of thing where I say they're probably going to make it really good at first and then possibly nerf it, because I can see this happening. I can see that the second you start taking damage, it gets a crazy like Yokozuna boost. And then that's what's going to inevitably happen anyway. You're going to run in and shoot somebody. They're going to shoot them back. And now they're going to get boosted. And now all of a sudden, you have a really fast brick. That could be deadly. This really could be deadly. But I don't think they go out of the way to say it's the slowest and most massive in the game. You know what I mean? I don't know. We'll have to see, right? Now, legendary cannon. This is another thing that I saw and I thought to myself, like, it looks like there's a crank here with a gear, like a wrench, right? So obviously it turns. Now there's a mortar version. So my thought was the cannon is fixed mounted like a tsunami, and then the crank and the gear little teeth here, that's for the mortar, right? So fixed mounted cannon, rotating mortar. I don't see how they'd make it a rotating cannon and a rotating mortar. That kind of seems a little overpowered, but let's see if they explain that. Founders love parts that can switch modes. The new legendary cannon is a flexible tool of destruction with impressive vertical aiming angles, which is quite in line with its general concept. The main firing mode is the same as a classic cannon that fires on a ballistic trajectory. The only difference is the new legendary cannon can fire in bursts of several projectiles. If you hit your targets, you can activate the perk that allows you to switch to the second firing mode. It turns your cannon into an artillery weapon that fires on a plunging trajectory. Each shot in the mode deals massive damage. No enemy can hide from this cannon. So it seems to be that the perk is the second mode, right? So if you hit enough shots, it'll charge up and then allow you to switch to the cannon mode, right? Which is cool, but it's not really explaining whether or not this kind of rotates, Let's add the animation thing that I saw right about now. New frames. A really generous gift from the founders indeed. They are bringing new frames to the Crossout 3x1, 3x3, and a new special L-shaped 3x3 frame. A surprise based on the popular demand. All new frames will be available in 2 variants, light and standard, making it 6 frames in total. These are the 3x1s, these are the 3x3s, and these are the L-shaped 3x3s. P.S. We are happy to receive your feedback about new types and sizes of frames in the game. We will try to add more new frames in future updates. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. A lot of good stuff here, right? Now here's the thing. They got rid of the impulse from the Toadfish for a reason. Because it was ridiculous and people cried about it, right? So if they do have a crazy impulse, I can already see this happening. It's going to be like a perk you're going to have to charge up or something. Or you're going to have to like charge for a very long time to get the impulse. Or it's going to be a super slow reload. You know? They can't just have it like slap, slap, slap. And everybody gets thrown back to their spawn. You know? That's not going to happen. All right, boys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you sticking through it. You know, I didn't want to just go over the first part because it didn't have enough really information. It just didn't. Like, it didn't seem important enough. And they always say, we're going to change stuff anyway. So I just wanted to see if they would verify anything or at least double down, because then you can kind of take it with a little bit more reliability. You know? Have a great day. Have fun today. Stay tuned for our new daily video. Deuces.